World champion boxer Oleksandr Usyk, who is fast becoming a legend in the sport, said after his latest victory over Daniel Dubois, "I don't have motivation, I have discipline. Motivation, it's temporary. Today, for example, you have motivation, but tomorrow you wake up early and you don't have motivation. When I wake up early for training, I never have motivation. I have only discipline. Motivation is good, but discipline is better." We tend to think of discipline as something hard to do, something that requires force, effort, concentration, like you have to overcome something using great strength. That sounds exhausting, like you've spent half your energy just getting yourself to do the thing you needed the discipline for. I'm going to show you a more gentle path to discipline, one that will firstly cost you a whole lot less force and energy to maintain, and secondly, one that will make you more likely to achieve your goals. You can think of it as having an internal voice like this.
You will not laugh. You will not cry. You will learn by the numbers.
That's the forceful version of discipline. Versus having an internal voice like this.
Observe, what is this sensation? What is it that that human called pain?
That's the gentle version. The difference between them is this. The force version relies on emotion, whereas the gentle flow version relies on thought, and more specifically, language, which is the material of thought. Here's why the force version doesn't work. When you use the way of force, it's like you're saying to yourself, "I don't like who you are. You're no good. Fix yourself. Change this. Change that." When you do that, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response, the fight or flight response that says, "Protect me." In other words, don't change a thing. It's an instinctual emotional reaction from the conditioned part of the brain. So the forceful approach to discipline uses what are called negative emotional attractors, or NEAs. That's why you feel the need to force the change by revving up your emotional state. The more gentle approach I'm going to show you uses positive emotional attractors, or PEAs, to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming thrive response, sometimes called the rest and digest response. And as I said, in this approach I'm going to show you, it's initiated and maintained by thought and language rather than emotion. To use an analogy, imagine you want to move a rock. If you use emotion without thought, you'll find yourself heaving and pushing, huffing and puffing, and generally using a lot of energy to maybe get nowhere. Then imagine along comes thoughtful Archimedes, who by using thought applies a lever, or lever if you're American, to the rock. That will get a much better, more reliable result with much less effort, right? Today, I'm going to give you that lever that you can use to keep your commitments and achieve your goals without needing to conjure up the force of emotion. To do that, I'm going to introduce another scientific term, integrity. In scientific terms, when we say a system has integrity, we mean that it is whole, unified, soundly constructed, complete, and working. For example, a bucket that has no leaks has integrity. Likewise, an electrical circuit that has integrity is one that is working smoothly and providing power the way it should. A system that lacks integrity, that has leaks in other words, will stop working, will lose its capacity to hold whatever it was holding, water in the case of the bucket, or energy in the case of the electrical circuit. And it only needs one small leak for that to happen. Now in life, we human beings create our reality by first thinking and then speaking it into being, and we do that using words. For example, you might think, and then you might say or write, "I will get into shape by next summer, and I'll do that by going to gym 3 times a week." And notice the phrasing I used, "I will." That is known in linguistics as a speech act, and it's different from "I want to," or "I need to," or "I must," which reflects an inner state, a desire, but doesn't declare something or make it real. I've talked about that in another video. When you make a speech act, you literally speak something into being. And when you follow that with action, when you act in accordance with your word, when you do what you said you will do, you bring it into being. You achieve the outcome. Another example, you might say, "I will make sales of $1 million this year, and I'll do it by contacting 20 prospects a day." Notice, I'm not creating pie-in-the-sky goals here and dreaming that it'll attract them just through positive thinking. No, I'm declaring an outcome and an action-based path to achieve it. Sales of $1 million, contact 20 prospects a day. It doesn't matter what I feel or think along the way. It helps, but it's much more important that I perform the actions, that I do what I said I would do, regardless of how I feel in the moment or on the day. Your thoughts and feelings will fall in line, and I'll show you how and why. Think about what happens when you do those things you said you would do. Well, firstly, if you've calculated the odds correctly, you'll achieve your goal, that beach body or the $1 million, snap. But something else will happen too. You'll feel a whole lot better about yourself. Why? Because your system, which is you and your spoken word and your action in alignment with that word, will be whole and complete. It will have integrity. Inside that energy bubble that is you will have increased the energy of self-belief or self-efficacy, which is the belief that you can do the things you set out to do. That's because every day that you went to gym or made your 20 calls, and remember, you did it regardless of whether you felt like it or not. You just did it, and every time your subconscious mind will have registered that accomplishment as evidence that you can move aside obstacles, including your feelings, to do what you said, to calmly and gently bring your actions in line with your word, the word that you gave. Notice that phrasing. You gave your word. You said you would do it. You made a commitment. You made a promise to yourself. Wasn't anybody else telling you? Because we're usually good at those when the boss tells us to, but these are ones we made for ourselves, to ourselves. And because you took your word, your promise seriously, you acted on it. So you can see no emotions or force necessary. You created an inspiring vision and you surrendered to what needed to be done to achieve it. You gave in to your commitment. You found yourself being drawn to that vision and therefore doing what you said you would do without resistance. We can say you served the vision, which came from your imagination and is about something in the future, rather than serving your feelings, which come from your past, from your existing, your conditioned, your habituated self, from the way you already are, which, as we said, is a system that seeks stasis, that wants to keep things the same. That part of yourself that wants to survive unchanged feeds you all the reasons why you should rather stay in bed or feel sorry for yourself. Through the feelings it feeds you, it initiates, feeds, and amplifies resistance. Trying to get motivated while this is going on is like wading through treacle and requires force. That's the emotional resistance that requires emotional force. On the other hand, when you give your word and you surrender to your word, there's no emotion involved. It's just thought, decision, word, action. It's like a hot knife cutting through butter. And when you keep doing this, you maintain the integrity of the new system, the one that you created from your imagination, using your word, and which you sustain through action in alignment with that word, the word that you gave, the promise that you made. We can say that you maintain integrity with your word. You can think of yourself as an energy bubble that you create with your word and energize with your action. And in the end, as we said, you'll achieve the goal, as long as it's not a crazy goal, as long as you are realistic and calculate the odds correctly and it's within the range of your talents, and perhaps also your karma or destiny or fate, which I'm sure plays a part. Then you'll achieve it. How long it will take, nobody can say. You can try putting a deadline on your goal, like, I will achieve a 7-figure exit in 3 years, but whether reality plays along is another story. The secondary gain that you'll get from following this process is the self-efficacy that you build by keeping your word, which you will have even if you don't achieve the goal. In fact, you could even turn that statement around and say that the primary gain, the most important gain, is the self-efficacy. The secondary gain is the goal. Because think about it, if you miss out on the goal, you might need to adjust your sights or recalculate your odds. Or it might be that something had happened like COVID or some random tariffs that affected your business. But you still feel that sense of power that comes from keeping your word. So keeping your word is paramount. It shows up as that discipline without force. When you build self-efficacy in this way, you'll feel like you can move mountains, let alone just a rock. You'll feel like you can conquer the world. Now there is one caveat. What happens if you don't do what you said you would do? Well, it's like bursting the bubble. The system loses its integrity. You'll most likely experience a slight deflation, possibly a sense of guilt. You might even lose energy around that commitment, thinking, oh, well, I'm not good at that, and then you might want to give up. But that's most likely that other part of yourself that wants to keep things the same. So if you find that happening, the first thing you can do is simply own the fact that you didn't do it. Own it and let it go. It means nothing. Don't attach all sorts of meaning to it. No need to punish yourself. Just forgive yourself, let it go, and recommit to the goal and to the steps you're supposed to be taking to get to the goal. Maybe there's something you can do right away that you can prove to yourself that you're serious and that you're back on track. For example, you might go to the gym or make a sales call right now. It's important to know that you can also release yourself from a word, from a commitment, but this should be done consciously and deliberately. So maybe you're taking time off to study or travel and you release yourself for a period. Or you decide that having a beach bod is no longer important to you, and hopefully your reason is not that it's too hard, but rather that your values have changed, perhaps. and so you release yourself consciously and deliberately from the commitment. So I hope you can see that this is a way of achieving discipline while being gentle with yourself. The way of force activates those negative emotional attractors, and that's why you feel the need to force the change by revving up your emotional state. However, when you use thought and language in this way, it's about asking yourself what you want, then defining that as a vision or an outcome, and then gently agreeing to allow yourself to have that thing while recognizing what it's going to take. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the thrive response. Then it's about respecting yourself enough to grant yourself that vision by taking those actions, or not taking actions that go against it, like if you decide you're not going to eat bad stuff in order to get that beach bod, same thing. And now you're using positive emotional attractors. You find yourself being drawn towards that vision of yourself, and so you naturally, out of a kindness and respect for yourself, perform the actions that take you closer to it. You could also say it's an act of surrender. You give up any and all resistance to the vision you are living into. So I hope you can see that this approach of gentle discipline through being in integrity with your word is a way that can take you closer to the kind of discipline that Oleksandr Usyk was talking about that has clearly worked for him in achieving his extraordinary goals and achievements. I'm Neil Bierbaum, and I'm here to make sure you achieve your realistic ambitions. If you found value from this, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.